Good day, fellow adventurer, and welcome. My name is Matt, and today I will be doing my 6th Pathfinder 2e Remaster class overview. Up for review this time is the Wizard. I'm going to try to keep these videos to about 10 to 12 minutes in length, so please bear with me if I don't cover everything on all the slides. The Wizard received two big remaster changes, the first granting them access to all simple weapons, and the second completely overhauling their arcane schools. The latter was a relatively huge change, so I'll be taking the time for it in its own section in the overview. The Wizard, like the Witch, comes with the worst starting proficiencies in the game. Their key ability score is Intelligence and gains 6 hit points per level, the lowest out of any class. They're only trained in Perception, Fortitude saves, Reflex saves, simple weapons, and unarmored defense, but are untrained in any armor. They do get expert proficiency in will saves, as per all spellcasters, and skill trading is even lower than the Witch, coming in at 3 plus their Intelligence modifier, as opposed to the Witch's 4. The Wizard's tradition of choice is Arcane, and is trained in arcane spell attack rolls and DCs. The Wizard, thanks to their long and varied list of spells, can take on multiple roles depending on their arcane school, as well as how well they can access their list, since they keep spells in their spellbook. The Wizard, thanks to the bevy of spells known, will be primarily taking on the role of utility caster, carefully leveraging their spell slots to get an upper hand outside of combat. Similarly, in combat, they can take on the roles of controller and debuffer quite nicely, thanks to the amount of spells that can directly affect the battlefield or their enemies. Finally, due to their high intelligence, they can also take on the role of librarian. In terms of secondary roles, the Wizard will often fall back on blasting spells when the rubber hits the road. They get a nice array of them to choose from, so it's always good to have a few on hand. And thanks to spells like Invisibility, Blur, and Haste, the Wizard can also adopt a support role, but do be aware that they do not gain any healing spells or direct stat buffs like the Bard and Cleric do. Finally, it is no surprise that I do not recommend the roles of Striker and Defender for the Wizard. With only 6 hit points per level and middling defenses, they will get crushed if they dare wade into melee. The Wizard's class features, as with most spellcasters, are gained at level 1. Arcane Bond returns from Pathfinder 1st Edition, allowing the Wizard to recover any prepared spell already cast during their adventuring day. The Wizard starts play with a spellbook containing a smattering of spells, 10 cantrips and 5 first-rank spells, not including school spells. You can add 2 more to your spellbook whenever you level up, and can also add more spells via the Learn a Spell activity. Arcane School was one of the big remaster changes, decoupling the Wizard's bonus spells from the School of Magic the spells are derived from, though there is still plenty of overlap moving into the remaster. The Arcane Thesis remains the same, and is the Wizard's conduit for casting spells. Finally, Archwizard's Spellcraft grants the Wizard a single 10th rank spell slot at 19th level. The Wizard's Thesis can be quite impactful when it comes to building your character. Experimental Spell Shaping gives you a first level Spell Shape feat, limited to reach and widened spell at the time of this video. At 4th level, you gain another Spell Shape feat of no more than half your level, which can be swapped out during your daily preparations. This can be useful later on, when options like Conceal Spell or Explosive Arrival arrive. Improved Familiar Attunement gives you a powerful familiar, almost as good as the Witch's. It starts play with 3 abilities, and gives an additional one at 6th, 12th, and 18th level. Check out my Witch Guide for more information on familiars and how to use them. Spell Blending allows you to trade 2 spell slots of the same level and gain an extra spell slot of either 1 or 2 ranks higher. You can do this as many times as you'd like, and becomes really helpful at later levels when you might not want to use all of your low-level spell slots. Spell Substitution is a situational ability for sure, but being able to swap out a prepared spell for another one can be important if you find out what your next encounter will be and can prepare accordingly. Finally, Staff Nexus gives you a magical staff which contains 1 cantrip and 1 first-rank spell, and can be crafted into a magical staff, such as a Staff of Fire. At 8th level, you can expend up to 2 prepared spells to charge your staff instead of just 1, and at 16th level, you can expend up to 3 prepared spells. Your choice of Arcane School will give you an extra cantrip and 2 first-rank spells known, immediately added to your spellbook at 1st level. Additionally, when you can cast a new rank of spells, you again add 1 spell from that curriculum of that rank to your spellbook. However, the most important aspect of your Arcane School is that you are granted an extra spell slot per spell rank you can cast, but it must be from the school. There are currently 7 Arcane Schools to choose from, each with their own focus. Ars Grammatica is probably the most unique of the spell lists here, providing utility, debuffs, and buffs. Protective Wards provides a very nice buff to AC to yourself and allies, and if the battle goes long, this aura can become quite impressive. The advanced school spell, Rune of Observation, is a great out-of-combat tool to scout areas ahead. Battle Magic, the school formerly known as Evocation, returns in full force here, and all the spells on this list involve dealing damage or mitigating it. Spells like Force Barrage, Fireball, and Chain Lightning are staples, and it even gets True Target for assisting allies. Force Bolt is a mini Force Barrage, while Energy Absorption can yield some much needed defense against certain foes. Civic Wizardry. Transmutation makes its comeback here, giving you many ways to shape the battlefield to your liking with spells like Wall of Stone and Earthquake. Disintegrate is an interesting spell to see here, and it is one of my favorite utility spells in all of Pathfinder. You don't need to disarm the trap, just disintegrate it. Earthworks is a decent battlefield control spell. The advanced school spell, Community Restoration, gives out temporary hit points to allies, a rare sight to see on the arcane list. The School of Mentalism combines enchantment and illusion to provide a host of debuffs onto your opponents. Be aware that many of these spells have the mental trait, and it isn't wise to stack up on a lot of these. Charming Push is a nice debuff, and Invisibility Cloak is a nice way to gain invisibility without having to expend a spell slot. Protean Form attempts to replicate the Transmutation School, giving you many ways to alter your form to fit your needs. Scramble Body lets you change an enemy's biology, potentially causing them to be sickened, and Shifting Form gives you a choice of a physical boost from an additional move speed or sense. The School of the Boundary focuses on the undead and necromancy, with a bit of darkness thrown in for good measure. Teleport and Translocate are nice additions to see here, giving you some good mobility options both in and out of combat. Fortify Summoning is useful for your undead minions, while Spiral of Horrors is a fantastic way to dissuade enemies from getting too close. And finally, Unified Magical Theory basically remains the same as last time. The Universalist gains an additional first level feat, in addition to receiving Hand of the Apprentice. They gain additional uses of Drained Bonded Item per day, equal to once per day for each rank of spell you can cast. Interdisciplinary Incantation allows you to replicate another arcane spell being cast using a wizard slot of the same rank. The wizard is similar to the witch in terms of their advancement, which is to say, poor. They must wait until 11th level to become experts in perception, and their saving throws aren't much better. Reflex improves to expert at 5th, and Fortitude follows suit at 9th. Will eventually hits Master Proficiency, but all the way out at 17th level. Wizards improve their weapon proficiencies at 11th level and gain specialization at 13th, the same level their unarmored defense improves to expert. Their spell proficiency is standard fare for casters, expert at 7th, master at 15th, and legendary at 19th. Wizard class feats, though certainly improved upon moving into the remaster, are still a bit lackluster, especially at early levels. Spell-shaped feats, such as Reach Spell and Widen Spell, could be interesting picks in order to keep yourself out of melee combat. At later levels, Quicken Casting can also be useful in important fights to get off multiple spells in one round. At 8th level, Advanced Spell School and Bond Conservation are excellent choices to expand your repertoire of focus spells and recover more spells with Arcane Bond, respectively. Superior Bond at 14th level gives even more uses of Arcane Bond, which can certainly be enticing, but on the whole, it might be better to use your class feats for archetype feats. The Witch archetype is especially useful in order to pick up Life Boost at level 4, giving you a familiar as well. The spells you can prepare as a wizard are going to be dependent based on the adventuring day in front of you. If you have an inkling as to what you're going to be fighting, be sure to prepare accordingly. Good general spells to prepare include a couple of damage spells, preferably targeting different saves or AC. Detect Magic and Read Aura are staples, while Shield is a useful defensive tool if the opponents have ranged attacks or if you are unlucky enough to find yourself in melee. For the purposes of this guide, I'll use these cantrips for all of the sample builds, but you should use what works for you. In terms of general spellcasting, giving the wizard the flexible spellcaster class archetype can allow them to truly mix and match their spells as they progress in level. This won't be too impactful at lower levels, but being able to freely heighten many of their spells will be great for them down the line. Their Arcane School, giving them extra spell slots, allow them to still keep up in terms of overall spell slots. For Librarian Wizards, Lore Master rears its head again as an obvious choice. Witch is a fantastic archetype for many roles. It gives you additional spell slots, a familiar, and access to many great hexes like Life Boost. You also will qualify for this archetype immediately. Alternatively, if you're looking for other support options that you qualify for right out of the gate, the Alchemist dedication is also fantastic for bombs, elixirs, and mutagens. Blessed One is also great for lay on hands. I did want to give a special mention to the Beastmaster and Cavalier archetypes here. Choosing a mount and giving them the mature companion feat will allow them to make a free stride action per round without needing to command them. This opens up a lot of avenues of play, as you can now get into position and cast your desired spells without needing spell shape. Not only that, but this works wonders with Bond Conservation. This allows you to use the ability and then cast the recovered spell in the same turn while still being able to move. In Exploration mode, the wizard will more than likely be detecting magic or repeating a spell in order to discern things around them. Downtime will most likely involve learning or acquiring spells to add into your spellbook, or earning income via crafting. The wizard will most often have their hands full when it comes to encounter mode. Hopefully, you prepared the correct spells for the day's outing, and you can use them when the opportunities present themselves. Because of the extra spell slot the wizard receives compared to the bard and witch, I do recommend blasting as a secondary option, once all the debuffs have been applied. Blasting can also be quite useful if matched up against enemies with weaknesses that you learned, thanks to previously recalling knowledge. I'm going to preface this that these builds are going to play quite similarly due to the nature of the wizard's roles. The Universalist wishes to prepare spells on the fly in order to be apt for whatever situation presents itself. As a result, you should attempt to determine which kinds of creatures you'll be up against and prepare accordingly. The Evoker focuses on blasting, using strong top-rank spells to get the most mileage out of their abilities. Early levels will be a bit of an issue, but once you are able to trade your lower rank slots to really push your damage output, you will find yourself in a nice spot down the road. The Mindsmith focuses on mental spells in order to weaken their opponents in combat and soften them up. However, do note that you shouldn't overly invest into spells with the mental trait, as many enemies are going to be immune to them, like mindless undead. On the other hand, the Worldsmith uses battlefield altering spells in order to shape it to their desires. Starting at first level, the simple Grease spell will have to suffice, but once other spells like Wall of Stone come into play, this build really begins to shine. I'm going to preface my conclusion by voicing a bit of concern with the direction Paizo decided to take with the wizard. Though it retains a lot of its old abilities, and many of the focus spells were just simply transferred over to the new wizard schools, there are, in my opinion, too few spells per spell rank that the wizard can prepare in their bonus slot. For that matter, I heavily recommend the School of Unified Magical Theory. Having access to additional uses of Drain Bonded item is much more valuable. The arcane theses were left as is, which is fine. I don't think they needed any changes. I am generously giving the wizard a rating of B, the lowest rating I have given out so far. I no longer think the extra spell slot per day matters nearly as much, given how restrictive it is compared to how it was pre-remaster. Though they are probably the best librarian in PC1 and can fulfill a wide array of roles in combat thanks to their spell diversity, I don't see how the wizard manages to stand out from the crowd. The witch received plenty of quality of life changes in the remaster, but I was disappointed to see the wizard not follow suit. Furthermore, the damage nerf to cantrips hit the wizard pretty hard, as they would often rely on these cantrips like Electric Arc and Ray of Frost in order to fall back on at lower levels. This does not mean that I believe the wizard is a bad class by any means, but I am a bit hesitant to recommend them to newer players. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for additional content. I plan on releasing one video of this type every week until I have covered every class, so do stay tuned. I currently do not have plans on doing these videos in any sort of order, but we'll make sure every class is covered. You can check out the slides in the description below, and of course, have a great day.